Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today with all these incredible authors. I agree that 7 minutes is scarier than a full book talk. My book is Now We're Here: Family Migration, Children's Education, and Dreams for a Better Life. So, to give you a sense of what the book is about, I'd like to begin with a brief excerpt. I think people don't understand how much we want to live. Adriana, a 15-year-old migrant youth from Brazil, explained to me. When people ask me, why did you come here? I tell them that's the wrong question. The right question is, do I have the right to have a good life, to dream? As we sat in the cafeteria of her school here in Massachusetts, she continued, if we were all equal, like we should be, or like we are in the eyes of God, don't you think people would understand when somebody leaves their home? Sometimes I feel like only the rich get to have a purpose, and me and my family, we have to explain and explain ourselves. Wanting a good school, good education, having a chance, is that a crime? Quase tenho que pedir desculpas por estar aqui. I almost have to apologize for being here. Well, here I am now. Now we are here. Adriana and her family made their way from Brazil to the US-Mexico border in 2018. They were detained together and released after almost 2 weeks, then traveled to Massachusetts hoping to forge a better life. Theirs is one of 16 stories at the center of this book. Families from Brazil, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras who crossed the border between 2018 and 2019 at the height of restrictive U.S. immigration policies, namely the zero-tolerance family separation policy and the migration protection protocols known as the Remain in Mexico policy. The zero-tolerance policy specifically separated more than 5,000 children and detained more than 60,000 families. Based on 3 years of ethnographic research, this book interweaves stories of parental sacrifice, children's embodied experiences of migration, children's responses to border crossing experiences, and the compounding weight of a global pandemic on families already navigating housing insecurity, interrupted schooling, prejudice, and fear. What holds these families together, or what they held on to, was the idea of an education. For parents and children alike, U.S. schooling represented something stable in the middle of profound rupture, a place where opportunity lived, where the journey north might finally mean something. The book asks how that promise played out. How did multiple disruptions, migration, harsh border policies, a pandemic, shape what children experienced inside and outside of schools? And how did schools respond to the knowledge, the trauma, and the resistance that these families brought with them? The heart of this book, though, is the children, how they play, laugh, struggle, overcome, tell stories, and resist. We don't have enough research that deeply engages with children as full beings and not just with the assumption of them being the process of becoming. Listening to children and youth is an imperative to understand how migration policy shapes their lives. Cruz, who was 7 and had migrated with his parents from El Salvador, explained, depending what happens at the border, the people in the government can decide what they do with you. William, an 8-year-old from Guatemala, noticed the different uniforms of police officers when his family arrived at the border. Some of them had brown clothes, some had black clothes, some people had normal jeans and a t-shirt, but they were also police, he said. While playing with toy cars on his terrace at his home, William, who was separated from his father for several weeks, told me he had ridden in many different vehicles in the last year. This one, he held the toy, belongs to the police on this side, and that one is with the one that wears brown clothes. Border Patrol agents usually wear dark green, and ICE agents usually wear black. These encounters at the border remain with children long after separation and detention. In another instance, during a parent-share literacy assignment at a school, William told a friend that his dad had to wear an ankle monitor for months after being released in the U.S. Andrew, his classmate, replied that a neighbor had cut off his own and thrown it into the lake so the thing would drown. When their teacher, Mrs. Diaz, overheard, she said, I don't like this kind of talk here. I don't need anyone else feeling scared, okay? It's in the past. The boys looked at one another and they felt connected. Andrew whispered again to William, tell your dad. Children sharing border experiences inside schools and classrooms happen often. And in one of the chapters in the book, I explain these dynamics I have termed pedagogies of silence, where educators hear children's knowledges about the border, but they decide to skip, reroute, silence in order to protect them. So who cares? We should all care, not because 1 in 4 children in the US public schools are children of immigrants, not because over 36 million children are on the move worldwide and will eventually sit in a classroom somewhere, not because multilingualism and inclusion are good for everyone, but because we shouldn't need to explain caring for migrant children and youth. In the book, I argue that American society has conditioned its recognition of immigrant children's dignity on extraordinary performance, the exceptional student, the inspiring story, the child who earns their place. Now We Are Here challenges this framework at its roots by turning toward the ordinary, the daily rhythms of life, the invisible labor of care, everyday schooling, the remarkable moments that constitute childhood. This book insists that dignity is not a reward for exceptionalism. Adriana, the 15-year-old I quoted in the beginning, knew this. She was asking whether she had the right to dream and to ask for a better education. She gave us the answer, yes, unconditionally. And this work bears witness to the families who have been living that truth quietly, daily, powerfully, all along. Thank you.